We begin our series for Lent tonight. The 7 deadly sins. Perhaps like me, you didn't have any idea what the 7 deadly sins were while you were growing up. I watched a movie in 1995 when it was released called Seven that I regretted right away. I don't recommend seeing it, but it was the first time I was ever exposed to these 7 deadly sins. Now, there's a history before this, which we will refer to on Sundays, but in 590, Pope Gregory the Great ascended to the papal throne, and he took what was given to him and codified what we now call the 7 deadly sins, and they are pride, envy, anger, sloth, greed, gluttony, and lust. He ranked them according to what he called vileness. So tonight, the most vile of them all, pride. Now, if your first response is, well, this isn't going to apply to me, then good news, you're in the right place. The term pride occurs 64 times in the New Testament. In Latin, the term is superbia. Isn't that something? Superbia. Now, biblically, pride has its roots in the Garden of Eden, Genesis chapters 2 and 3. A theologian from a generation past named Reinhold Niebuhr once said, "Mankind's sin lies in the pretensions to be God." Do you remember the temptation? Take of this. You will be like God. To be like God is to be in control. So, in this kind of idea of control and being like God, what do you think about pride? Pride, of course, can be bold. When I first moved to Spokane in 2013, I remember that the Seattle Seahawks were actually a good team. And thank you, there was a playoff game against the 49ers, and Richard Sherman, the cornerback, made an amazing play at the end. And when a reporter came up to him afterwards, he almost assaulted her with her words. She asked him a question, tell me, what are you feeling about this play? And with great enthusiasm, almost a frightening intensity, he said, "I am the best cornerback in the league." A couple of generations ago, Muhammad Ali used to stand around and say, "I am the greatest." It's the same thing. Pride says, "This is my lane. If you don't like me in it, you can go around me." Pride says, "My children are smarter or cuter or funnier or better athletes than yours." Pride says, "I read my Bible more than you do." Pride exalts in our strength, the strengths we already have, but pride does something more with it. I'll never forget meeting a person I really enjoy cooking, and I went to this person's home, and he said to me, he informed me, "You know, I'm a gourmet cook." And I thought, "No, you're a mechanic." But he repeated it again, "I'm a gourmet cook." And I thought, well, I'm excited to eat your food, but you can't really say that about yourself. Somebody else can say it, but what was he saying? "I like to cook. I'm good at cooking." But you can't say that. That's what pride does. Pride exalts our strengths. Pride covers our weaknesses. Well, I'm not that bad, right? I mean, there are there are people who are far worse than me. That person over there on that side of the church, they really need to hear this sermon. Pride masks our insecurity. Pride puts up a front, whether it's a toupee or cosmetic surgery or our prevalent social media feeds that we get to present ourselves in the way we want ourselves to be presented to the world. But just like the wizard behind the curtain, it only takes a dog to expose us, and then our pride has left us hanging. Pride can be bold, but pride can also be subtle. In fact, theologian and preacher William Willimon wrote in his book, Sinning Like a Christian, "If one were not attempting to listen to and follow Jesus, I can't imagine why one would know that pride is a bad thing." Most of us can spot hubris or arrogance or vanity, but it seems that pride has become a type of virtue to be cultivated. Think about this. Companies want their employees to take pride in their work, in their products. My son's high school, like every high school, they have a motto, Wildcat Pride. Parades and campaigns for black pride and gay pride, two communities that have often had their dignity taken away from them. If you are a parent, maybe you know, have you ever thought, what is the difference between pride and teaching your children self-respect or self-esteem or self-confidence? My glory, I've raised my kids saying, don't forget, confidence is a theological term. Con fide, it means with faith. So be confident. American virtue is taking pride in your work. So when you see and stand back on the winter day after a dumping of snow and see that the driveway is plowed and you get that feeling that you did that, or that kitchen is cleaned, or that garden gets planted, or that car washed, that to-do list gets accomplished, the inbox gets cleared. What does it mean that we take pride in these accomplishments? You see, I wonder if maybe the ancient church fathers decided pride should be listed as the very first sin in the list for us, or because of us, to address the sin of the good people first. The sin of pride, which can be all internal. You know, the disciples were good people. They had a lot going for them. Jesus gave them power and authority to serve. He sent them out, and it says in verse 6 that we read tonight, so they departed and went through the villages, bringing the good news and curing diseases everywhere. It wasn't their power and authority. It was the power and authority that Jesus gave them, and they went out. And they cured diseases, and they shared the good news. And then they return, and what's their conversation? Well, who's the greatest among them? So Jesus, in my mind, says, you guys are acting like children. Let me show you what this is about. And he takes a child next to him and says, if you welcome a child like this, because you see, if you want to know who is the greatest among you, it is going to be the least among you. And then I imagine John the disciples thinking, redirect. I've got to get off this topic. We're not looking so good now. And so he says, whoa, while we were out operating in power and authority, Jesus, there was somebody we did not know. They were not part of us. And so we said, you stop that. And I imagine Jesus shaking his head in disbelief. They're not against you. Why are you pointing them out? It's so easy, isn't it, to see and to name what is wrong with others. And I have to wonder, even in telling this story the way I've just told it about Jesus and his disciples, are we not doing the very same thing? Dear ones, tonight, let's not look at the pride of others for comparison or justification. Tonight, let's just look at our own pride, because it is deadly unless we nail it.